In today's Parents in Action, we're talking about the dreaded talk. Yeah, that one. The one that parents don't want to have. More and more conversations about sex that were happening outside your home, like at school, church, and also community centers. But you really want to be able to have that open line of communication as well. So Tampa Bay Parenting Magazine editor Angela Ardolino is here now with some advice. Always good to see you.
You too.
You say this should be not just one conversation, but a series of conversations, starting when kids first start to notice that there are differences.
That's very true. We need to remember that. Not like when we were kids. Kids nowadays can get all kinds of information online, and we have to have that talk earlier and earlier so that when it does come time to them actually being sexually interested in other people, then we need to have that conversation with them. And it's not just one talk, it's a series of talks. And those talks start when they're in preschool, and it's more teaching them about their bodies and why they're different. And then as they get older, you progress more and more into those conversations.
Okay, let's talk about elementary school then, when kids start to, you know, they're reaching puberty much earlier these days. So what do you tell them around that age?
Well, it's perfect because in elementary school, they're now having sex education. So you get sent home with books and information, and the easiest thing for me to do with my kids was to sit down and open up that information because someone's put it all in a book and go through it and talk to them and ask them if they have questions. And we need to understand that we're just as uncomfortable as they are, and it's okay to say that if you want, that I'm not.
Or so.
Right. I'm not comfortable, that it feels weird to talk to you about this, and you may be uncomfortable, but we must talk about this because they have to know. And when they become teenagers, by the time if you've been talking to them this whole time, by the time they're teenagers, they will come to you. There's a statistic that says 90% of teens would avoid being sexually active if they had more open conversations with their parents, meaning they could come to them and say, hey, or have questions. So it's really important we keep that line of communication open with our kids.
Okay, so if you haven't had that talk by the time they're, young, and now you've got this teenager that you need to sit down and have the talk with, what's the best advice?
You really need to tell them the truth, and you need to talk to them and talk about their future and talk to them about what happens when you have unprotected sex. You gotta say the things that, not to scare them, it's the truth, about unintended pregnancies or having an STD for the rest of your life. So those are types of things that it really puts it in perspective of whether it's worth it or not. The more parents share their views with their kids and give them the truth, the more the kids are going to trust them and come to them when they have questions about those things. And if you start early, it won't be an uncomfortable situation. I mean, trust me, they'll ask you questions where inside you're going, oh my gosh, I can't believe I have to talk about this. But if you can remain normal and just tell the truth. And you can say, well, as far as I know, or hey, let's look it up together, or let's figure it out together. But have that open conversation with them so that you don't have any problems later. Yeah. Don't wait till they're 16.
It's still hard, but at least that makes it a little bit better.
Right, start with their bodies. And if you treat it as something that's normal, then it'll be normal to them.
Always great advice.
Thanks.
Angela will be back with us next week. We'll talk about spring break activities. Yeah. If you missed any of our points or you want to share the information with another parent, just go to abcactionnews.com. You can also find help with a variety of parenting issues at tampabayparenting.com. And while you're there, sign up for a subscription to Tampa Bay Parenting Magazine.